So once the shifter stops, then you can click a picture of it.
It was quite common in those days for businesses, large businesses, to have these sidetrack the sidings that would
Practically everything had a little siding at one time.
railroad spur that would come
That's
into
right.
a yard and
with the loss of those individual sidings went most of the freight business.
Yeah.
You know, the railroads still, of course, haul major overland movements, long trains running from Chicago to Boston and places like that. But for the most part, they serve either trucking terminals where they have piggyback or containerized freight.
right.
The individual loose car railroading, such as you see here in these pictures, where you batted boxcars around everybody's little siding, into everybody's little factory and everybody's little warehouse.
Yep.
Those days, for the most part, are gone forever.
They sure are.
I think it might be interesting to note in this photograph that I think the compressor, at least the steam-driven part, needs a little repacking around.
Yes, the steam is leaking out rather profusely.
Item 41, United Shoe Machinery Corporation, Beverly, Mass., October or August 14,
August 14.
1939, Harold.
Yeah, this once again is a American-type locomotive that it's backed in and getting ready to pick up the United Shoe Crew and to take them back to Beverly or Salem, where I imagine it went. It could have went to Boston, but then again, I don't have the timetable on those.
Yeah, we do see, I think, a few automobiles parked on the rear side,
Yep.
so there must have been a parking lot.
That was the side of the parking lot that wasn't river.
Yeah.
No, I guess it had been filled in by then. I don't remember.
Yeah, and
the
by
water.
now, you know, automobiles were becoming much more popular, and I suspect that probably after World War II there was no more shoe train.
Yeah, I don't think there was.
Yeah.
No.
Also of interest to me is the fact that most of the folks, as we mentioned earlier, live south of the city of Beverly that
Right.
worked at the shoe.
Right.
Otherwise, obviously, they would have had a train going in the other direction.
If anybody came from the other direction, probably they were more well-to-do and were in management and drove down. The working class lived in the Boston and the immediate suburbs. And they would have come in by train.
Well, that was a convenience, though, made possible by the shoe to provide this transportation for their workers. A bit of consideration is what I'm saying for them.
Sure. Well, because otherwise the nearest station was Beverly Depot, and that was, what, 3/4 of a mile down the road, and it would have been a hike, and then the shoe would have had to provide a bus or many buses, actually, to accommodate all these people. So it was much easier to have the railroad simply back right in there.
Yep.
This was one of the features of United Shoe Machinery Corporation, was to be like Big Daddy or a parent corporation, and it attracted a lot of people that were interested to grow and work there the rest of their lives. Actually, I'm one of them, one of the last ones that went to work there after college or after the war, and retired from United Shoe.
Lots of folks would have said, though, they were more or less like a benevolent dictator.
Well, most big companies were.
In terms of having their way with the city of Beverly and running pretty much in politics. And
it was a big outfit, and I had some clout.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the mayor listened when they squawked.
No doubt about that. Okay, Harold, September 4, 1939.
Oh, this is one of the larger Pacifics, and you can see by the number, this is the first one of the 3700 class, and I guess this went right up to 3709, and that's the last one that you could see going through the Salem Tunnel. So,
yeah, the bigger ones from 3710 on up, the P4 Pacifics were too large to fit through the old Salem Tunnel, which had about a 14-foot ceiling clearance. So you never saw anything bigger than this, we call them the little 3700s, east of Salem Tunnel.
Yeah. I want to ask you now this question. Were there safety measures provided for the personnel here? For example, what would happen if, God forbid, the engineer would become ill right in the middle of a run? I mean, there are these people whose lives are in his hands, more or less, sitting there in the rear cars. Did they have any backup systems, safety systems?
I imagine the firemen could bring it to the next place, and then they'd have to
Call somebody.
hang up for a while.
There are always two men up there in the
Oh,
cab.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Which, by the way, you do not have today.
Is that right?
Today you have one man.
That's right.
Gosh.
Large freight trains have two men because the brakeman rides in the locomotive since there's no more cabooses.
Yeah.
But back in these days, you had two men in the cab all the time simply because you had to. I mean, you had one man running it, and the other man was responsible for keeping the fire hot and keeping the water level up.
Yeah. So as in an airplane pilot, co-pilot situation, there'd be somebody there that could control the engine.
Right.
Scares you, doesn't it?
It does,
Diesels can be run by one man, and because they have what is known as a dead man's control, which is a pedal, and the engineer has to keep his foot on it at all times. So the theory being that
If he falls off of
if
it,
he had an ill turn and fell to the floor, his foot would come off, the pedal would come up, and the brakes go on automatically. Well, unfortunately, a lot of men don't like to keep their foot on this pedal all the time, so they'll set their bag on it
Oh dear.
or some other weighty object, and then they can keep their foot off of it.
Oh boy.
Especially with a big lunch in it.
Yeah,
Well, we don't want to dwell on that aspect,
Right.
but the
But
thought
that's-
occurred to me that, you
Yeah.
know,
that's right.
Well, that's,
they would, I'm sure, have had their
something to
safety
think about.
precautions
Right.
there in line. All right, Harold, again, we continue with your fine collection. Item 43.
yeah, this is another Pacific heading towards Salem, and it's probably taking up and dropping off passages in the Beverly Depot. And this is a morning shot because that's the way the sun come in.
Okay, let's go right on because we have really a pile of them left here. Beverly, Mass. Depot, November 11, 39. Harold.
Okay, this was this I think was one that was going when I clicked the camera, and I grabbed it primarily because it was a double header, and there's no reason that it was an official double header for the simple reason that it doesn't have that number of cars on it. So I think the way I look at it, it was one locomotive was dead heading into Boston, and the other one was probably the one that was dragging the.
I see. Well, ladies and gentlemen, without giving much thought to the approaching hour, here we are still gabbing and running out of time. We hope that you have enjoyed our second in a series of 3 programs featuring the railroad's era of the steam engine as it related to our own Beverly community. So for Harold Boothroyd and Richard Symmes, this is Ed Josephs, hoping that you have enjoyed our presentation, and we'll see you a little later on. Good night for now.